I never usually buy new games these days, just because I think they either look boring or they look too similar to something I've already played. But when I saw all the hype online about this post-apocalyptic game where you play as a cat trying to uncover a mystery in a buried city full of sentient robots, my interest was piqued, and I'm so glad it was. Stray is genuinely fantastic. It's not groundbreaking in its design, but what it does so well and so charmingly that I was hooked right from the start. I don't own a cat, as I've always been more of a dog person, but I think they're cool animals either way. And to play as one in a video game seemed a pretty interesting thing to try out. And when I started the game, I was immediately impressed by how the developers are portrayed stepping into a cat's body. The Stray controls really smoothly, and I was really immersed in the gameplay during every stage. Even though the majority percent of the gameplay is just jumping from one platform to another, it never really felt boring or repetitive because of how different this type of platforming was. Now, you don't actually control how the cat jumps, you kind of just find the right angle and then press a button and the cat makes the jump itself. At the beginning I was a bit bummed out by this, as I thought it would make the game more challenging and engaging if you could miss jumps, and I was expecting it to be the case. But soon I got used to it, and I realised that the platforming itself isn't what the game's about. It's about exploration and uncovering secrets, interacting with the NPCs of the game's world, and, well, pretty much just pretending you're a cat. When you're playing Stray, you really get a feeling that you're controlling an actual cat. This sounds obvious because you play as a cat, but the developers really nailed the mannerisms and habits of cats to make you fall in love with the protagonist. For example, if you press circle, you meow. The meowing actually serves few purposes throughout the playthrough, but I was constantly pressing it just because it was cute. You can scratch textured surfaces, some of which will open a door, but most of it are just for the sake of scratching. One of my favourite moments is when you're equipped with a backpack to carry items in, and the cat moves awkwardly, like they would in real life if you dressed them in a jumper or a funny outfit. There's just so many little things that are in the game for no other reason than to give you a chance to do stuff that cats do, and it adds so much aesthetic and immersion to the whole experience. The game has an incredible amount of atmosphere, and it is completely filled to the brim with interesting things to look at and explore. It is relatively short and the stages aren't very big, but the fact you play a small creature exploring these otherwise cozy areas, it feels vast and open, and there's always one little nook or cranny that you forgot to squeeze into and find something else of interest. The fact that every person you interact with is a sentient robot never really takes you out of the experience. They're all designed uniquely and offer genuinely interesting dialogue and interaction to keep you wanting more. The world that Stray takes place in is fascinating to me. You start the game in a lush bright area with a small family of cats, and the game introduces you to the controls, but then you are quickly plummeted to the depths of the world's underbelly, a forgotten rusted city filled with danger and mystery. Your only objective is to climb back out of the city and stay alive. It's a simple concept, but as you explore the game's world, you realise just how tragic and interesting it is. Every encounter adds a little bit of extra depth to the world and gives you more and more questions along the way. There is so much I still don't know or understand about the game, even after beating it. You start off alone, but soon are accompanied by a small drone who led you to its location to bring it back to life. Before this, all you could do was meow and jump around, but now you've got a companion to give you utility for the rest of the journey. And B12 itself is a brilliant character with a tragic story. With B12 by your side, you can interact with the surroundings, communicate with the denizens of the game's world, and open doors. He's essentially your hands and voice. This is the only game I can think of where the two main best friend characters are a wild cat and a sentient drone. The concept just sounds absurd, but it just works tremendously well. The relationship you develop with B12 along the journey feels genuine and provoking. Even though the cat can only meow and B12 is an expressionless robot, the characters are still able to portray enough emotion and nuance throughout their interactions that I was pretty attached to them by the game's end. And not just with the main characters, but the secondary characters too. The game takes place in a post-apocalyptic underground world, and through dialogue and a story and memories of B12 discovered through exploration, you slowly unravel the truth and story of the world the game takes place in, and why the world is the way it is. For some reason, all the humans are gone, either dead or left. They've not been a part of the world for a very, very long time, and all that is left is a society of sentient robots, just slowly losing purpose in a hopeless and trapped existence. The city is underground beneath a giant stone ceiling, and the majority of it has fallen to ruin or is infested with a creature named Zerks. The Zerks act as the game's only antagonist. They're a termite-looking parasitic-ish lifeform that eat everything in their path, be that robots or you. Apparently the Zerks are a product of a special bacteria created by humans that eat rubbish and other kinds of pollution and trash, but for some reason, after they were released into the world, humans died off or left, forever. And over the course of an undisclosed amount of time, the bacteria eventually evolved into the creatures wreaking havoc on what's left of society. There's no way of really knowing how long the robots, or helpers as the game calls them, have been living in this dying world, but by all accounts it must have been a really, really long time. Robots will talk about hundreds of years passing like I would a few days, and if a bacteria has evolved to the point of animals that attack you in the game, it must have been thousands or even millions of years have passed since the humans disappeared. Life still exists in the helpers, and they have been trapped living in small pockets of society and culture with no communication with each other, praying for a way to escape, but only eventually finding one with your arrival. There's a lot of social commentary and subtext in Stray that I found very interesting too, like how the robots at the first stage have no concept of how the people living in the upper city lead their lives, and vice versa. How the ones living in the higher echelons of society will throw their garbage to the ones below with no remorse. And when you gradually leave one area for the next, you find that even though there are quality of life differences in each section of the game's societies, they are all still trapped in a hopeless and unending existence. It's very interesting, especially with the fact that there are robot children, and some robots refer to each other as father and son or other types of family. I've got theories for why this might be the case, but only a sequel or some additional content can really satisfy the large amount of unanswered questions you have by the end of the game. The gameplay of Stray is varied and changes enough to also keep your attention for the duration of the game. There's even combat in this game, if you believe it. A large section of the game has you fighting back against the Zerks with a powerful torch as you travel through the sewage system of the city. But sadly, you do lose your ability to kill the enemies pretty quickly. But it doesn't really matter, because actually fighting is only a small section of the game's experience. It's constantly moving you along to the next challenge and area in order to deliver a reoccurring fresh round of gameplay and atmosphere. There's exploration, conversation, revelations, combat, stealth, action set pieces where you're fleeing for your life, and then the opposite with these moments of peaceful tranquility that give the game's world a little bit of hope. There's a lot of love and passion and creativity and originality in Stray, and it makes it more than worthy of its current popularity. And it's also surprisingly cheap. When I went to buy it on PlayStation Store, I was shocked by its price tag. I really don't think there's any reason to not play this game, unless you hate cats. It's not the best game in the world, far from it. It's very easy and doesn't offer that much of a challenge outside of combat scenes or when you're running away from Zerks, but it delivers a captivating story in a beautifully crafted world filled with atmosphere, interesting characters, and wonderfully designed stages, each one perfect for an exploring hero cat to navigate through. If I had to describe Stray in one sentence, it would be this: it makes you want to have a pet cat.